This is Tush, and I welcome you to Tushalicious Talk, an Oklahoma City podcast for titillating women, tantalizing conversation. And I thank you in advance for allowing me to be your one-stop shop advocacy connection. Hey, this is Jackie, nicknamed Tush, and this is another episode of Tushalicious Talk, and we are broadcasting live on the League of Women Voters of Oklahoma County Facebook page because I am the co-president of the League of Women Voters of Oklahoma County. And today we are talking about an event called Breaking Bread, which is put on by the Oklahoma Justice Circle. And I have two guests here, the one and only Mr. Wayland Cubit, who does conversations with Cubit, and we'll talk about that a little bit. And I have Pastor John Middendorf.
Very good. Well done.
Yes, and he has a podcast at his church called Unafraid, and we'll talk about that as well. But diving into the Breaking Bread, is it a luncheon?
Yeah, so it's a meal, and at times it has been a breakfast, but this time on March 2nd at Mount Olive Baptist Church, it'll be a luncheon. So we'll start serving at 11, but the program will run until 1.
What about 1 o'clock?
Yeah.
About 1 o'clock. And who is invited to this event?
Have you already accepted the invite? Because everybody's invited.
Yes, I registered on Eventbrite.
All right.
Donna Thompson invited me, so I told her, yes, I will be there.
Yeah, everybody's invited. We do have, because we're serving food, the food is kind of, I wouldn't say the star of the show, but it's the foundational part of the event is because we get to share a meal together. And a lot of special things happen. We know that a lot of special things happen when people break bread together, share a meal together, and conversate together. So there is limited seating, so you have to register so that we know how much food to prepare for and how much seating to prepare for. So roughly about, 300 people?
300 or so, yeah.
Oh, wow. I didn't know it was that many people. Okay. And both of you are volunteers at Breaking Bread?
Yes. We have jobs.
We have roles that we play. Yeah, we have roles that we play.
Do you know what the purpose in creating the Breaking Bread events?
Oh, yeah. Go ahead, John.
So Wayland and I were a part of the early stages of the Oklahoma Justice Circle, and there was a time when all we did was take people on jail tours. And we took about 1,000 people through a tour of the county jail and said, it doesn't have to be this way. We would then sit down over pizza typically and say, here are all the stats, the statistics that tell us that things are desperately broken. And then we would leave from there and go see Remerge or Team or the drug court and say, this is an alternative to what you've seen in the county jail, that broken system, but here's some hope in it. But as we did that, we recognized that there are some underlying issues that cause the whole system to be broken, not the least of which is racism, institutional bias, poverty. And so Wayland and I asked the question, what might it look like to start drawing the target around those kinds of issues, poverty and racism? And so the first event really was something called Just Love.
Just Love.
Yeah. When we started to talk about that. But even beyond that, we thought, well, let's focus specifically on racism. What's it going to take to stem the tide on racism? And we both kind of decided it's going to be friendship, which can start with food, and the telling of stories.
Right.
Is that about right?
Man, that's why he gets paid to do what he does. Yeah, great summary of how we ended up with Breaking Bread event. But basically, Jackie, we know that when relationships form, God moves at the speed of those relationships, right? So when relationships form, we can start breaking down and start really talking about what causes people to engage with the criminal justice system, or what we hear now call it the criminal legal system. But there's hard conversations to have when you talk about race. So we figured that we can use our relationships across the city to bring people together to have a loving dialogue about the issues that really concern all of our hearts, right? Is how do we be better neighbors to one another, right?
Very interesting. The League of Women Voters of Oklahoma, the state league has several different local leagues. And so the Oklahoma County League was assigned discrimination. So I actually wrote a study on discrimination in Oklahoma's criminal justice system. So it's very
I'd
interesting.
love to see that.
Oh, I can find it for you. It's like 15 pages, but it's very interesting. And I kind of tried to relate how Oklahoma even became a state to what's currently going on in today's 2023. So
imagine that, Jackie. You were trying to connect history to what we are currently experiencing. So you'd have to learn history.
Right.
Interesting conversation
And
there.
you just can't disconnect it.
You can't
you can't understand today without understanding how we got to today. So I'm glad to hear that.
I've gotten a lot of compliments on it. I'm not trying to be boastful or anything, but yeah. But that being said, so what are the current or even future goals of having the Breaking Bread discussions?
Okay.
Yeah, John has, I'm going to let him explain, but he has this huge vision. And that's what leaders are. Our best leaders are visionary, right? And so John is imagining, right now we're at 300 people, and I don't think we imagined the rooms as big and filled when we started talking about Breaking Breads a few years ago. But John has, we want to take it to not just talk about Black and white issues. When we say racism, we usually park on Black and white issues. But what we've learned in engaging in these conversations is that sometimes the Black and white community are like mom and dad in the front seat, and the kids are in the back seat of the car going, hello, we're here. So you also have indigenous Native people. You also have our Asian groups. We also have our Latino community. We have a lot of diverse groups in Oklahoma City and Oklahoma County. And so we have been moving Breaking Bread to these other communities and talking about what's unique in their community that we ought to be aware of that maybe we didn't know. And so as we've done that, we're building some momentum that will lead to this big thing that John has in his vision. And I don't know if you want to talk about, because it scares me when you talk about this.
So like Wayland said, I think we've done 3 with the African-American community, 2 with the Latino community, and 1 with the second one on the schedule for Asian community, and we're working hard to do something with the First American community soon. And the meal is indispensable, but if all we do is just get together for a meal and there's not a lasting impact, if the friendships don't carry it, if it's just a meal, we haven't really done our work. And so the hope is that these are generative friendships that produce something that wasn't before, right? That's right. So we want to start to take specific steps. So in the last Latino Breaking Bread, we heard somebody make a presentation about how impactful it would be for all of Oklahoma City and County if we could offer driver's licenses to undocumented citizens who are paying income tax. They're already paying income tax. It would dramatically improve quality of life, not just for the Latino community, but for all of us, if we could go ahead and greenlight something like that. So we said all of that out loud. We're going to make more of that information available because we don't want to just be a group that gets together for a meal and then calls it good. We want to push some things. For example, we'd like to get everybody together. Well, Wayland's being kind, but he's the one that has the idea and can push the idea to have a youth Breaking Bread that examines the relationship between youth culture and the police department.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Yep.
But I do have hopes that we can beguile city leaders into kind of sponsoring or getting behind an effort to have all of these different corners of the city come together for a big one, for a big Breaking Bread event so that we can see the beauty of having everybody together around these same tables and also sense the power of synergy and collaborative potential there. And we'll try to, we need to find something to tackle all together, and we have some ideas. I don't know if we're ready to put our hat on anything just yet, but we have some ideas. But I think it's important that we aren't just together enjoying good food, but that we do something with the power that we've discovered we have together.
Yeah. The next question that I wanted to ask, I'm not sure if it would be redundant as to everything that you just said, but I was wondering, are there any substantial opportunities, or on the other end of that spectrum, big challenges, or what is the best strategy that maybe an attendee has had or experienced related to Breaking Bread? Like, can you think of a specific example?
Well, the things that what happens specifically almost every single time at a Breaking Bread is that we lovingly demand that you do not sit with people that you know when you come into the building, and we have Donna Thompson to help us get people seated, and her friends and her staff, volunteers. And so what happens is that you share your story with people that do not know you.
Right.
And you hear other stories that people do not know you. And what happens is that you gain an appreciation for other people's perspective.
That's right.
And so I challenge people to come in their set in one particular viewpoint and not leave somewhat changed because you shared a meal with somebody. And what happens is you know your friends when their challenge becomes your challenge, even though you don't deal with that challenge every single day. Like being undocumented was not my issue.
Right.
I knew it was a issue, but it was never my issue, right? And so I didn't get in line for it. I didn't stand for it. I didn't think anything about it until I shared meal and became friends with Brenda Hernandez.
Okay.
And when I became friends with her, and I see how what she has to deal with, even though it's not my particular issue, it became my issue because I'm friends with Brenda. Right. And so the challenge is to open people's minds up just enough so they'll allow a new friendship to form.
Yes.
And then that friendship and that love will now start breaking down some challenges,
barriers
that people didn't even know existed.
That's right. That's right. It almost sounds like we kind of live in a culture where we kind of dehumanize other people, especially of other races. So maybe the goal is to see the humanity in the next human being.
That's exactly it.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. I love it. I'll definitely be there. So outside of the Breaking Bread event, I know that you do conversations with Cubit and would love for you to talk about that. But if there's anything else besides that you want to mention, I encourage you to go ahead. But please tell us more about conversations with Cubit and your plans for it in 2023.
Yeah. So conversations with Cubit was kind of birthed by accident. So I'm really not a Facebook social media person until about 2020. I was running for Oklahoma County Sheriff, and I was planning on knocking all these doors and meeting all these people and doing all these events to meet people and share my platform with them. And the pandemic hit, and I didn't think it was going to be respectful or it was going to be safe to continue campaigning as normal. And so I said, well, what's this Facebook Live thing? So I went Facebook Live, and I thought that I would start up with conversations with Cubit, and I would just start interviewing all of the people I worked with across the city and share what I care about and what I love and what my platform would be. And I wasn't able to do that as well because the people that I work with were nonprofits and government people, and they couldn't endorse by coming on conversations with Cubit because it would be a de facto endorsement of a candidate. So I end up talking about me the entire time and dropping just nuggets of wisdom about service to other people. And after the campaign was over, the election didn't go my way. And I thought, well, good. I don't have to go on Facebook Live every week, but my inbox started to fill up with, please continue with these weekly conversations. And so I kept them up every Tuesday night at 7:30. I now get to talk to people all over the city for all variety of different topics. But what I want to do is I want to celebrate individuals, groups, and organizations who are making a positive impact on our community. People that you should know, people that you don't know that you ought to know. And then, and I want to ask tough questions to candidates, especially those that may not care so much about the communities that I care about, right? Or not from communities that I love. And so I just keep that going. And sometimes we just have very fun conversations on there. Sometimes we have very, very serious conversations, and sometimes we're talking about very serious issues that has hit Oklahoma City, Oklahoma County, or even some that nationally. So it's just a cool conversation, a cool way to meet people you may never meet.
In kind of current of what's going on.
And what's going on currently, right. And so it's really cool, and it's unhinged now because I'm not a candidate.
Who's your favorite guest you've ever had on?
Well, John, you've been.
That's correct. That's it. That's it. First time.
Well, what we were talking about the voting right? It was a new legislation that we call it the anti-protest bill. I think that's what you and I talked about on Conversation with Cubit, right? Yeah. So we talked about that, and then we talked about breaking bread
CP.
and 21 CPs. So we've had some good conversations on there.
What would you say is the strangest question that someone has asked you, or the strangest question that you've asked somebody else?
I'm usually the question asker, right? And so I like to try to dig. So before I have a guest come on, I dig into their background a little bit, and I just kind of give them some prompts about their background and let them just free will it. And so, being a retired police officer, I love to go deep into people's background. So everything you think you deleted off of your Twitter page is the thing that I'm looking for to ask them. It's fair game.
Did you do that to me?
You come later. Yeah.
That's great.
And so for Pastor Middendorf, you said that you have a podcast at your church called Unafraid. You want to tell us more about Unafraid?
Yes. It is conversations about topics that are typically topics that you avoid when you're church people. By the way, one of my favorite guests was a man by the name of Wayland Cubit.
I was going to ask you your favorite guest was.
That's it.
Cap.
So we talk about the disproportionate burden that the Black community bears on our criminal justice system. We've had Brenda on to talk about immigration. We've had the mayor on to talk about, at the time, he came on to talk to us about pandemic precautions that we were asked to take as churches, right? But we
haven't heard that one.
Yeah, it was pretty good. But we've had candidates from both sides. Colin Walkie was a great conversation partner. We had Senator Langford on and said, why do we do some of the things we do? So it is again just one of those things that we're trying to broach subjects that typically nice Christian folks don't broach, but when we don't talk about things, they become monsters. And so we're trying to make sure that these things don't stay beneath the surface and become monsters. But right now I'm between co-hosts and between producers, so that's taking a little bit of a hiatus now while we try to fill that other seat.
Well, maybe we can talk to Santiago out there and see if he can help you out.
Shoot a look over at him too. Yeah.
Yeah. Best engineer in Oklahoma City. But yeah. When is the broadcast, the Breaking Bread thing? It's Thursday,
March 2nd.
Thursday, March the 2nd.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can get there as early as 10:45 and register. And then you can start eating at 11 and the program will start at 11:30.
Okay. And what's the address one more time?
Mount Olive Baptist Church.
I don't know. Got to go Mount Olive. Ray Douglas. Pastor Ray Douglas.
You want me to look it up real quick?
Yeah. He's our host. But listen, when we talk about March 2nd, I think we ought to give them a little teaser.
As to what we're talking about.
As to what we're talking about. And so we're talking about gun violence, not gun ownership per se, but gun violence as a public health issue, and how that issue impacts certain communities differently. And so how do we have, and the conversation about guns and gun violence and gun ownership can be divisive. And when you talk about that, people automatically run to their corners about that. And we just want to put it on the table and say, hey, here, how do we come together? Nobody likes to see people dying senselessly, but how do we as a community come together and destroy this public health problem that's caused by guns? Right. And so we're going to try to usher in that conversation in a very loving way. And we have a fabulous expert on gun violence coming to us from Oakland, California, named Pastor Mike McBride, who's leading an organization called Live Free, who has done some incredible work in places like Chicago, Oakland, California. Is doing some stuff, I think, in New York. And he has some really positive outcomes in which to speak about. And we want to give him the microphone for a little bit to set the stage about his work. And then we'll sit around tables and talk about it.
Yeah.
Well, I will be there to join the conversation with my League of Women Voters of Oklahoma County hat
All right.
on.
That's great.
right.
That's great. And you'll be going to Mount Olive Baptist Church at 1020 Northeast 42nd Street in Oklahoma City.
Cool beans. So you guys figure out how to get registered beforehand. But if somehow you forget, then show up at the address, rewind this, and figure out that address again.
Or just call John.
Yeah. Or you can go to the Oklahoma Justice Circle Facebook page and you can register right there if you want to.
There we go. Oklahoma Justice Circle Facebook page, and you'll figure out how to register through there. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a good day. Bye. Tushalicious Talk is part of the Breaking Ice, Building Bridges community podcast platform, brought to you by Possibilities, Inc.